Welcome, everyone, to the main journey, a way for you to join me on a learning journey through life. My name is Samuel Main, and today we welcome Tom Perkins to the show. Welcome, Tom. How are you doing?
Thanks, Samuel. Good. I'm really good. Thanks for letting me come on.
I like it. For those of you that are just listening to the audio, you need to see the video. This man is suited, booted, tall, dark, handsome, looking good. He's ready for the show today.
You're too kind. It's all for you. It's all for you.
I like it. Tom, do you do this for every podcast that you're a guest on?
It's recorded. Yeah, I think it changes how you feel as well,
Yeah, that's it. I need to up my game, maybe. I need to sit here in my suit and shirt and tie. I like it. So, Tom, I'd love to delve into your experience with building a business, building websites, doing a lot in graphic design as well. Can you give an insight into what it is that you do and share an overview of how you help people?
Yeah, cool. So I'll talk you through what I do now. We'll probably delve into a bit of the backstory, but so I run a company called Evolve Websites. That is just me. I've got a few kind of VAs and things that help me, but that's basically just me. What I do is I help small businesses to have great websites. I help them to tell the world how great they are and to have websites that actually work, that get found in search engines and generate leads. And that gets missed so often. It's like the have you got a website? Yes, box ticked. Well, yeah, that's fine. It's like saying you've got a rust bucket for a car, and would it get you to Milan? Probably not. So that's what I do. I build quality sites, and I do that in a bit of an unusual way. But I'm sure we'll come on to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already nervous because I've got a website, but it's a box that's ticked. So can you lean into then what are the potential mistakes that business owners or people that are trying to develop a personal brand, what mistakes do you most commonly see with websites?
It ranges. I mean, the big one, the primary job of a website obviously is to get found.
Yeah,
and that means Google, basically. There's other search engines, as we all know, but that's basically Google. I'm working with a client at the moment on SEO, on helping their website to come higher up the rankings. And the first stage of any kind of SEO project is to look at the keywords. Look at, right, what do you want to be found for? And they had all these services and things they wanted to be found for, but weren't mentioned anywhere on their website. And it's like, how do you expect Google to know that you offer these things when you're not even giving them half a chance? So that's one of the main things. It is about thinking about what your customers are looking for, and that can be either commercial. So I want a business coach.
Yeah.
Or it could be informational. So it could be some of the questions that your customers might be looking for answers to, not necessarily ready to buy. So how can I get a better work-life balance, or how can I maximize the conversion on my funnels, or that type of stuff. And it's about producing that content, really good content you would want to find. Again, either sales focused, so talking about your services or your offering, or informational in the form of things like blog posts. But once you've got that, you then need to make sure that search engines can find that, and therefore potential customers can find that. So that's really just about some basic optimization to make sure that things like your page titles, that's the bit that appears in the tab or in the search results, your actual title on the page, your heading, your subheadings, making sure they all use some of those keywords. And you don't need to ram the keyword, you don't need to stuff the keywords in every sentence. You can be natural about it, but just making sure that all those things line up. And then making sure that Google can see that page on your website. There's a really good tool called Google Search Console, and basically Google created it to kind of give website owners to communicate with website owners. Because if there's a link broken on your site, Google's not going to phone you up and go, Samuel, by the way, did you know this link doesn't work? They just don't do it. They have this portal called Search Console, and through that, their system will automatically add a message to say we've got an error issue with this page. You can then see that and fix it. On there, once you've added new content, it's always worth putting that URL, take the URL, the address of that new piece of content, put it into Search Console, and run a check on it. And Google will either say, no, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And if it's brand new, then why would they? But from that point, you can then go, right, can you index this, please? Can you put it into your bank of sites?
Yeah.
And that will speed up the process for them. Or they may say, we can't see that. There's a problem with us viewing that page, in which case you've got a bigger issue that you can then solve.
So I know that you've been building websites for a long time and you've worked with a lot of different clients. What's the impact of social media been on websites? Has that helped you in that, it's becoming even more popular for people to be building an online business? Or is it negatively impacted what you do because now people are gravitating more towards social?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think it's a bit of both. I think when new platforms come out, everyone's like, right, this is the best thing since sliced bread. We need to be all over this, and that's great because there's when TikTok came out, there's opportunities everywhere. But I like to take the approach that like a bike wheel, where your website's at the center, that's the hub, and all this other stuff that you do. Because let's remember, you don't control Facebook.
Yeah.
You don't control TikTok. You don't control Instagram. You don't control LinkedIn. If for some reason they deem that some of your content breaks their guidelines, they can shut you down just like that. And if your whole following is on that one platform, that's not a nice position to be in. So by driving stuff back, and you need to be a bit careful now because platforms want you to stay on their platform. They don't want you to come off. So you need to be a bit careful in how you do it. But ideally, you want to always drive people back to that central hub because your website, that's yours. Mm-hmm. That's not going anywhere. You have full control of that. And then that gives you the ability to pick and choose what you do and what platforms you work on and so on.
I really like that visual of the bike wheel and it being the center, because I talk to a lot of my clients ultimately about risk mitigation across their socials, that if they are heavily dependent on one social, or maybe that account's doing amazing, of course, lean into your strengths, but from a risk mitigation point of view, you have to spread out across the different socials. But I haven't thought about the website being the core place to navigate people towards, and that straight away for me changed my own perspective on the website, because I know that my website could be improved, but it hasn't been a focus because obviously I'm growing an audience elsewhere. So that's already raising questions for me. When you're working with a client, you're setting up a website for them, how important is their branding, maybe some of the marketing, maybe like logo, the colors? Is that something you delve into right away, or do you wait until they've built some momentum?
For a lot of my clients, it's rare that I get startups.
Okay.
To be honest. Because most, the way most of the businesses I look after are service-based businesses. The way most of those start up is they were doing something for someone else. They're employed doing something. They might leave that. Quite often they get made redundant or have to leave. They get forced into being an entrepreneur or a business owner. And at that point, they're on a shoestring.
Yeah.
They're like, right, let's test the theory in a way. Let's see if this works. So they set up a website themselves using Wix or Weebly or GoDaddy or one of those. They buy a logo off Fiverr.com and they get some business cards off Vistaprint. So they've got this stuff and it's a bit all over the place, but it gets them going.
Yep.
So quite often when, the youngest a client is when they come to me as a year or two old in terms of the business age. And at that point, I will always look at the brand first. Start with that because that needs to be right. Everything else flows out from that. If your brand's wrong, your business cards are going to be wrong to a certain extent. Your website's going to be wrong to a certain extent because everything follows that brand or should do. Get that lined up. I think there's a lot. I think brand designers will make out like a brand can make or break a business. Like if your logo is wrong, your business will fail. I think that's rubbish. I think that's absolute rubbish. I think a business is made up, as you know, of so many parts. Okay. And I kind of, with business quite often, I use the analogy of like a lock. Like if you've got like 10 pins in a lock, you could move 9 of them out of the way. So you could get 9 things perfect. But if one thing still isn't perfect, you're not going to fly. You can't get that key in that lock. it won't open. And sometimes it's just one or two things. And you know, brand isn't going to be, you know, your logo being slightly wrong isn't going to be something that's going to fail your business. Saying that, it's worth, the biggest thing I see is people that don't understand, and this isn't their fault at all, but you know, business owners that don't really understand or see the meanings, sometimes the hidden meanings that their choice of colors or shapes or style gives.
Yeah.
You know, for example, that, you know, the basic color psychology stuff, the yellow and black being danger, you know, from the wasp and all the rest of that. You know, sometimes there's really simple messages, and it just comes. I used to use just a few keywords, literally, like brand values. So, like, right, what do you want your brand to be? You know, is it energetic? Is it calm? They're opposite things. One's going to be orange, probably. One's going to be pale blue. Do you know what I mean? They're really different things. And so, you know, drill it down to 3 or 4 kind of key brand values. And that then gives you a kind of benchmark. So if your designer's throwing you 4 logo options, you can get those keywords and you can compare them. You can score the options against that. Same with your business card, same with your brochure, same with your LinkedIn header, same with your website. You know, it then gives you a reference point. So that I think is much more important. Is those values, what does it say?
I like that. It's really interesting that you use the blue and the orange, because those are the 2 colors that I use, and they're very controversial.
Yeah, but they go together really nicely. Don't get me wrong.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Obviously for me, the orange for the ginger hair, and then the blue just because that's a color that I like to represent the brand. So yeah, there you go. And I've got that mixture of like chill, but then sometimes I'm the complete opposite.
Perfect.
So, I want to almost in a way challenge you to a certain extent, in that I've definitely heard people say, and I may have even said it myself sometimes, is that a website can almost be relatively like old school, and that things are now transitioning in marketing, in social. And, you know, I know a lot of people that have built a business, but then don't even necessarily use a website or have a website, but they've still been able to develop an audience. For you, what would you agree with that, or is it a case of like, no, it's so tried and tested that, you know, websites still hold that value?
That's a good question, a really good question. I think it, like a lot of answers, I'll start with it depends.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think certainly for my clients, for service-based businesses, for regional service-based businesses, you know, if you've got a you know, if you're a mortgage brokers, or, you know, you're a packing company, or you're a video company, or you know, you offer services to a fairly regional base, yes, I think you need a website.
Yeah.
People expect you to have a website. I think people want you to have a website. I think a website gives you lots of options, and obviously you can get found in search. You know, you can't optimize, to a certain extent you might be able to, but you can't optimize your LinkedIn profile or your Instagram profile like you can your own website. You can't create new sections to that profile if LinkedIn doesn't offer it, you know. So I think for certain businesses, yes, they do need a website. You know, obviously I would say that, but I do believe that. I think for there's other types of businesses, you know, if you're much more of a personal brand, if it's much more about you, I don't think your audience probably, and you know, you'll be better placed to tell, you know, answer this than me, but I don't think your audience necessarily expects a website. It's not absolute that you must have a website. Yeah. No requirement, exactly. You know, so I think yes, there are, and like everything, there's lots of ways to do things, and not one is right. You know, none of them are right. It's what's right for you, what works for you, and what works for your customers. So I don't think it's a black and white answer. Yeah,
I think hearing you talk about it now, I can see the flip side, where you mentioned ultimately, if a business is big enough, or if it's in a certain industry, then it ultimately has to have a website to give it the credibility and authority that a business would need, compared to someone who's potentially just starting their business, just getting things going. At that point, they might not necessarily need a website. So if you was to ultimately erase everything that you've done so far, but you keep your own knowledge and skill set, and you was looking to start again from zero in building a website, and you wanted to develop your marketing, your personal brand, or, you know, ultimately your business, what steps would you take?
Another good question. You're good at this, aren't you? I would. The first thing I would do is go networking. Before I had a name, before I had a logo, before I had a website, before I had business cards, I would go networking. I think a lot of people, you know, I've got a saying that I'm sure I nicked off someone, which is done is better than perfect. Because I think so many people try and get everything lined up perfectly. They'll hold off going to networking events because they haven't got their logo done and they're waiting on their designer and they haven't got their cards printed or they haven't got the money to print their cards. And it's like all this time you're wasting, you're not meeting people. I would go networking. And I would, whatever idea I've got in my head, I would throw out there. And I would just on the fly, right, this is what I do. And I'd probably mess up my words and all of that stuff, but it doesn't matter because people like that. You know, it's real. And I would look at people and see what they do. If people are still engaging with you, if people are smiling and nodding or they're writing down, right, you know you've got something. If after the meeting, people come up to you and go, Samuel, I really liked what you said about X, you're onto something. That's something you can fly with. If no one does any of those things, then you might need to tweak it and rethink. And I think the businesses that are most successful are the ones that really quickly learn and adjust.
Fail.
You know? Yeah, exactly. Fail fast, you know, and then improve from there. So yeah, that's what I would do. If I was going to make websites, I would have to have a website. And I would, you know, in my industry, you basically need one anyway. So yeah, I would definitely set up a website. I would create a logo. Like I said, I don't think logo is make or break. It needs to say the right things about you, but I don't think it's going to be critical to your success. I'd make some nice business cards. You know, I like in-person networking. Obviously, with virtual networking, that's a bit redundant now. And I would meet people and talk to people and build relationships and really try and understand what the need is in the marketplace and then fill that. But obviously, align that with. I've heard a lot of people say that actually. Just, you know, find out what the marketplace is and fill that gap. It's like, for me, you know, like we've said, I'm not trying to build a multi-million-dollar business or multi-million-pound business. So for me, it's as much about what I enjoy doing, where my energy is, where my passion is. Because if I'm not following that, it's not true to me. I'm not going to do a great job. So yes, it's about understanding the marketplace and the need, but also it needs to work for me. You need to be selfish about it. Because if I'm not loving what I'm doing, I'm not going to give my best to my clients.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you've got to be selfish to be selfless, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that quote you said at the start. Is done is better than perfect. There's another quote that I like to use in some of my coaching is imperfect action trumps perfect inaction. Yeah, so it's a tongue twister, but it's you've got to put it out there. You've got to take that gamble, you've got to take that leap. So I definitely want to delve into some of the lifestyle and work-life balance, but I want to come to that in just a minute.
Yeah.
Because I want to just continue on this networking, because I know that you've done a lot of work here. I know that obviously you've been on a few podcasts and looking to further expand some of the networking. There's going to be other people that are listening to this podcast right now that are looking to expand their audience, to become more guests on podcast shows, to ultimately to network. Do you have any advice for someone about how they can go about improving their audience, changing their circle, and starting to connect with new people?
I think your network is so important. So important. Like, you know, we are not, you don't work in isolation. You don't work in isolation. You know, you depend on the people around you, and the better those people are, the better you can be. So I think network as much as possible. And I started networking in 2008. I got invited along to this thing called BNI.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that time, I didn't have a clue what it was. I set my business 1 year earlier. I didn't know this thing even existed. You know, for B2B networking, business to business, it was like, wow, it was like opening up this whole other world. And much as, you know, people have strong opinions on BNI, there is no denying it teaches you really, really quickly how to network, how to sell, how to build relationships. And you quite quickly learn, actually, you got two of these, one of these. You know, the more the other person talks, the better. You know, because unless you're an idiot, you're learning that whole time. And really, I think it's that. You know, I've had a few one-to-ones recently, a few little kind of catch-ups with people where they'll say to me, you know, and Caleb was one that said this very thing. what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Which is such a nice question, because it's like, you know, he's going out of his way to help me. You know, I've just met the guy and he's going out of his way to help me. You know, that's a great thing to offer. And just those things can build really strong relationships. If you go out of your way, go over and above to help other people, you know, like you having me on today, you know, I really appreciate that. But then, you know, then it puts you in a position where you could, if they say to you, you know, and you don't obviously expect them to do that, but if they say to you, look, is there anything I can do for you? Actually, like, I love speaking on podcasts. I love meeting cool people and sharing what I think is of value. Hopefully it is. I think just asking. Yeah. You know, I think it's that simple. Like, so, I think we overcomplicate so much that taking it back to really, really basic things like look after other people, help other people, and if you need help, ask for it.
I like that. It's so simple, right? It's be a good person. Like, ask for help, ask for connections, and deliver value. It's like, it's not complex. it's all like
one on being a human.
And if you're the same as me, you overthink all of these things. Like, it took me so long to actually start this podcast, despite numerous people asking me to start a podcast. And it was just like, I just needed 5 seconds of courage to hit record. You know? It's so simple. Yeah. So I'd love to lean into the lifestyle aspect, because having spoken with you, you know, we chatted before coming on today. Your views are very different to what is potentially the normal. Now, most people, if you said to them, do you want to build a multi-million-dollar business, they're like, yes, absolutely. They're going to snap their hand off, until you tell them what they actually have to do to do it. You know, I can't speak from experience. You know, I have built a 7-figure startup, but your approach then, you even mentioned it in this podcast, was that you don't want to do that. And ultimately that lifestyle is more important. Can you expand on that? What's some of the things you have in place with your lifestyle at the moment?
Yeah. So when I set up my business, going back to 2007, when I set up my business, there was two guys that I knew through an agency that I used to do freelance work for when I was a freelance designer. And they wanted to set up an agency and they wanted me to come on board. Now, I didn't. I passed on it for various reasons, but I set up my company. They set up theirs. Within 2.5 years, they were flying, absolutely flying. They had 17, or they looked to be flying, I should say. They had 17 staff. You know, they'd grown incredibly quickly. And I'm then beating myself up. I've got all that self-doubt. What is wrong with me? Why am I such an idiot? Why am I so rubbish at this, you know? And then they went bust. And the reality was that through that time, they had got nothing from the business apart from debt and illness through stress, you know? Literally, that business had produced nothing. And it, as a side note, it tickles me now when people are like, they judge whether you have an office or how many staff you have as a good thing. Oh yeah, he's flying. He's got a massive office and he's got 50 staff.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that can be an indicator of a successful business, but all that says to me is you've got a ton of liabilities. You know what I mean? Like you got to make a lot of money before you even make a penny. At that point, I said to myself, I will forfeit the potential millions that come from pushing super hard, always pushing yourself, never stopping, working all hours, sacrificing a ton of other stuff, which I think for most people you probably have to do to get to those levels. And I'll focus on, you know, quality of life, quality of relationships, and I've done that, you know. So, you know, I don't have any desire to employ people. I don't want to employ people. You know, I've got like we talked about, you know, the other day. I've got more than I need of pretty much everything. I mean, when you look at it in reality, you know, there's people who don't have clean drinking water. I mean, I've got clean drinking water. I've got power. I've got electricity. I can pay my bills. I've got a roof over my head. You know, I've got the money. If I wanted to go out for dinner tonight, I could go out for dinner tonight. And that sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm not. I'm just saying, you know, for most of us, we have more than we need of everything, and we should be grateful for that. You know, so you know, for me, what's really important is to look after myself. And again, this comes back to what I mentioned earlier about being selfish to be selfless.
Yeah.
If I look after myself, if I look after my head, if I'm not stressed, if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, if I'm working with people I like, if I'm getting good energy from them, if I'm looking after my mental health, if I'm looking after, all the rest of it, your nutrition and hydration, all the rest of that, I can be a better dad, I can be a better husband, I can be a better friend, I can be a better son, I can be a better brother.
Yeah.
All those things come from focusing on yourself. And I think too few people do that. I think a lot of people focus on other things or just don't focus on anything. And
yeah. How fortunate are we? Right. That's, and that's a massive part of gratitude is a huge part. And you've clearly done a lot of reflection on this too, which has allowed you to, to get to this, healthy headspace that you have right now. There's potentially going to be some people right now that listen to this that are not in that best headspace, or they do not have a healthy work-life balance.
Yeah.
What steps could they take to improve either their headspace or their work-life balance that they have at the moment?
I've got loads. I mean, I think there are so many simple things that you can do. I mean, there's a guy. So I'm really into my motorbike. So I'll give you an example of one thing that someone does that I think is so clever. Really into my motorbikes. There's a YouTube channel called 44 Teeth, and there's a guy called Chris Eads who's a part of that. Lives not far from here in Hampshire, and he struggles with mental health, and he started this thing called Permission to Talk, and talk as in engine talks. That's kind of play on words, but Permission to Talk. He started this thing which he made these stickers and gave them away for free, just so petrol heads, bikers probably, can get one of these stickers for free, stick it on the bike. And it's just like, I understand we all have our challenges, particularly blokes, we all have our challenges. And it's okay to admit you have, and you have permission to ask me if I'm okay, all that kind of stuff. And he started something, he started an Instagram channel where he was going to walk every day. And he would do a live stream, talking to camera on Instagram every morning.
Love it.
And for him, I think it's as much the commitment. It's communicating to the world that everyone has their challenges. But he said numerous times, just a walk. I mean, when you're feeling really, he said, he's feeling really crap. He don't want to get out of bed in the morning. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. You can guarantee you go for a walk for half an hour. After a half hour, I would be amazed, unless something really bad happens on the walk, that you would not feel better at the end of that walk. And you don't need anything apart from a pair of shoes. Go bare feet if you haven't got shoes. Do you know what I mean? There is nothing really stopping people from doing that. So I think that is a really simple thing. I think that change of environment, like if you're really struggling with something, change where you are, change your state in some way, go to a different place, whether it's out in the garden or just down the road, or go to the post box and post a letter or whatever. Just change that. I think gratitude is another big one. We talked about that. I used to keep a gratitude diary. So every night before I went to bed, and through the winters, I used to suffer really badly with SAD, with seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. Through the winters, I would write a gratitude diary, and I would write 3 good things that happened today, 3 things I'm grateful for, and one thing I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So I would go to bed, hopefully, in a positive mind about tomorrow. Some days, it was so stupid. The things I was writing, I was really having to dig deep to find good things, But just the process of doing that, it's such a good process to go through, and it makes you realise, what have I got to be fed up about? I mean, we all have our challenges, and life isn't always great, but really it's worth remembering we've got more than we need of most things.
Yeah, I've obviously just returned myself from Africa, from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and seeing how some of the Maasai live and things like that was just unbelievable. So coming back to this like comfy home, and I've got my own office and apartment, all these things, it's like, okay, I've got a lot to be grateful for. You mentioned then SAD. Are you open just to talking about that a little bit more?
Yeah.
So can you just explain what it is? Because it's extremely common, and I don't think it's actually talked about enough, especially for us here in the UK with the weather fluctuations that we have. Yeah. Can you just give an insight into what SAD is, and then really just a little bit more about some of your experience with it?
Yeah. So it stands for seasonal affective disorder. Obviously, in the UK, we have quite extreme light variation. So in the summer, we at the moment, or the months just gone, I've hardly seen the darkness. Literally, you go to bed. If you go to bed at 10:30, it's still more or less light in the sky, and you wake up, it gets lighter, like 4:45 or something. So you don't really see darkness for a period, and then through the winter, particularly if you have a dark grey day, it's like you don't really see daylight. I mean, it might. Yes, it's daylight through between like maybe 8:30 and 3:30, but if it's a grey day, there ain't much light around. And that for some people that can really affect them, and it did me for a long time. And I used to. The weird thing was I used to get it with changing light, not lack of light. So spring and autumn and spring, strangely, when the light was increasing, it still would do things with my body that gave me, depression and anxiety, and all of those things. So for me, a lot of the techniques that I've mentioned, I put into place, and I think maybe some of that's why I value that so highly and focus so much on lifestyle and being happy rather than make it. Because ultimately, when you die, you ain't gonna take it with you. Oh yeah, some of the things that helped me, Lightbox really helped. So on those dark days on my desk, I usually have it there, and it's just shining in your face, and it just gives you that boost like the sun does. They're pretty good. A lot of the techniques that we talked about, exercise, obviously good nutrition,
fundamentals,
fundamentals,
good health.
Exactly.
I've noticed, and you mentioned about ultimately that you're the only person in your business. Same for me. Yes, I have some assistants that help me out, but I'm the only one that essentially that's bringing in actual income and so on. I've discussed with a few people about ultimately loneliness when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to develop something and build something. It can be something I believe that a lot of people do struggle with, and I struggle with this 100% myself. Is that something that you've also experienced in building your business? And if it is, and you feel like you've come out the other side of that, how have you managed to overcome the loneliness that can come with entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I'm a little bit weird, to be honest, because I'm fine with my own company.
Yeah.
Like I know some people need other people a lot more, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Me less so. I'm less dependent on those relationships. That being said, I don't think any human can depend on their own. I need people around me. I need my family and my friends and my wife. I think for me, like we talked about your network, I think as a business owner, that is key. Mm-hmm. I mean, B&I, for example. So I joined in 2008, 2009. One of my best mates, Sean, joined, and quite quickly we set up a contra deal. He's an accountant. He's quite unusual. He uses a similar model to me. We set up a contra deal, so we work closely together. We then set up a mastermind 5 or 6 years ago. We set up a mastermind. So, every couple of weeks we'll have a phone call. We got on this afternoon for an hour, and we'll do 5 minutes of wins each. So, right, tell me what your wins are. And even when you're feeling crap and you don't think you've achieved anything, again, it's gratitude. It's good to dig deep and find those things. And then we'll do 25 minutes of discussion points each. So that hour long chat, that's great because it means you're not on your own. And your network, things like Only, which I'm part of in the UK, that's amazing. So, most weeks, this morning I had a coffee with a guy that I know through networking.
Yeah.
And we just sat down, and we're similar age, similar position in our life, and just sat down and talked some business, talked cars, talked holidays, whatever, And so many of my key people in my business, my bookkeeper, my accountant, some of the writers I use, my mortgage broker, my insurance broker, I know them all through networking. Nice. They're all relationships I've built. So I think I sometimes say, even if I didn't have a business, I think I'd still go networking, because I think, it's not about, yes, you get business, but I don't think it's about business at all. I think it's about people and relationships.
Yeah, I think I wanted to know, I want to bring this up. I don't think it's weird that you're comfortable in your own space. It's healthy. That's right. Where we want everyone to get to, is that they can ultimately sit in a dark room and be okay with it.
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot of work to get there. It's something I'm working on. And actually Caleb's podcast, I'd like to give him a little plug. His podcast called Naked Sunday is that concept of being able to sit in the dark by yourself naked and be okay with it. So I think that we want to get more people to that place. It's just a process. It's really interesting you mentioned about the networking. from a point of still aiding your business, but then also personal, because that's been so imperative for me to be able to grow and stay sane, during the last couple of years that we've had, where the pressure has been on for business, and there's been a lot of transitions towards online. It's really interesting to hear you say about that. I wish we could get more people to be okay in themselves, and I think you're right, that comes from that gratitude, it comes from that reflection, from that awareness ultimately, which is really interesting. I want more people to get there. More people to get there. It's cool for me, because part of what I'm developing with my own brand, I've got multiple different pillars. The podcast is one of them, some business stuff, also some of the adventures, which is like the Mount Kilimanjaro travels, trips, but then something that's in development is the main project. And this is centered around helping men between the ages of 18 to 35. And ultimately I call it performance coaching, because I don't want it to just be, it's meant, for your mental health. But part of that is loneliness, going outside and getting in the gym, having some non-negotiables you're going to do every single day, things that you need to do to get you into a healthy and good place. So thanks for sharing that, because I appreciate it's also part of your journey that's probably not discussed.
No, you're welcome.
Very, very often. So I want to just revert back to potentially some of your clients or some results that you've delivered with the clients that you work alongside. Is there someone that either sticks out, or a business that sticks out that have just transformed their business by working with you? And what's that story been? What's that journey look like?
It's a good question. So there's one that springs to mind. I mean, it varies. I work with businesses that range in size from one owner manager up to 50 staff, 75, something like that. So depending on your definition, all probably small businesses, but I would say probably micro and small, or small and small medium. There's a few really small businesses. One joinery company that spring to mind. One cleaning company. And both of those, regularly say to me how many inquiries they get through their website.
Love that.
There's an upholstery company as well. They're flooded. They've got too many to deal with. I love that. That gives me such a buzz, because it's like, this stuff works. It's so good. And for them, it's a lifeline. To have more inquiries coming in that you can deal with. I mean, that's a great position. You can pick and choose your work. You can put your prices up. You've got options then. And as a side note, it always tickles me when people, you say to people, have you got a website? And they're like, we don't need one, we're busy. I'm like, yeah, but what if you were twice as busy, and then you could double your prices and do the same amount of work and get paid twice as much, or pick and choose the clients? So those annoying ones that you have to take on at the moment, it's a silly argument. But one of the larger businesses is a recruitment company that I work with. And when you meet people sometimes and you're like, you get it, like you're on, you're switched on, you're a smart cookie, you're on the right wavelength. And these guys were like that, and their previous website was really outdated, wasn't doing much. And we rebuilt that from the ground up. A lot of it with search in mind, with SEO in mind. And their website, some months they're getting 30% conversion ratio on their website.
What?
I mean, it's huge, and they're getting like 5,000-6,000 visitors a month, and they're getting like 1,500, 2,000 inquiries, leads a month. I mean, it's insane. I mean, saying that, they're recruitment companies, so they've got a motivated audience. These people want jobs, so it's a bit of an easier one to do from that point of view. But that everything about the site was developed with this single goal in mind. We want people to apply for jobs. Everything drives them in one direction. And I think that's one of the keys that I should have mentioned earlier, really, about the success of what makes a good website. Being single-minded and asking someone to do one thing, one really good thing. Don't ask them to do three, because you can't make your mind up. Mm-hmm. Put some work in and make your mind up, and find that one thing, because otherwise you can't make people think. People won't think. They won't make a choice between three. They'll just do none of them. They'll hit back and they'll go to the next option in Google. So, that I think is one of the key things.
I like that one thing, but also, having too many leads too many clients inquiries. It's like you say, it's a healthy place to be. So there's likely going to be people that are listening to this, that including myself, that are now like, I need to review my website. I need to change things. I need to improve what I'm doing. How could they get in touch, or what would be the best way for them to connect with you?
So website's probably a good one. So evolvewebsites.co. On there, you can request a free website review, which is something I do a lot. So I'll review people's website, review a business website from a lots of different angles: search, performance, speed, design, marketing, so call to actions and offers and things like that. I'll put together a plain English report, send that through to them, and then I usually spend half an hour to an hour on the phone with them, just talking it through, because there's always questions that come out of it or discussions that spin off from that. So, you know, your audience is welcome to go on there if they've got a website and they're not sure if it's as good as it can be. And, you know, I would say don't be worried about it not being perfect. It's never perfect. A website is never, ever, ever perfect. It's just a constant evolution, you know, evolution. And I always say, you know, it's great when people, when I make people aware of opportunities on their website. It's not something to be ashamed of because this thing isn't working on your website. I think it's great. So it means you can fix something, you can improve something. Your website, your business was doing all right before that. Imagine what it can do if we fix that stuff. So yeah, there's always opportunities that come from it, and there's no obligation to, you know, to use me. It's, you know, it's completely free of charge.
Like it. All of the links will be down below, so people will be able to access that. I have one final question for you, and this is a question that I ask all of my guests that come on the show. The question itself: what advice would your future self give you in this current moment?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think probably some of the bits I've talked about: focus on yourself. Focus on yourself first. It's like the airplane thing, isn't it? You don't put someone else's mask on first. You put your mask on, and then hopefully you can help 10 people.
Yeah.
You know, the better you are, the more people you can help. So I think focus on yourself. I think that is more important than anything else. And that, hopefully it's come across that I don't mean that in a selfish way, but I think that is the most important thing. Focus on yourself. Focus on what goes into your body. I don't mean just water, just, you know, hydration and nutrition. I mean in here and in here. Yeah. But what that's the only thing you got control of. There's so much crap out there. You're the only one in control of what goes in, and some stuff isn't good for you when it goes in. You know, some news, some media, some social media. You know, that's so important. Control what goes in and look after yourself.
I like it. I think that's an amazing way to wrap this up. Tom, massively appreciate you coming on today. It's been super interesting, super fun for me to connect. And again, I appreciate your time. All the links, everything will be down below. And yeah, hopefully we get to do this again sometime soon.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. It's brilliant.
I hope that you have enjoyed this content. And if you've got value from it, please do help me in supporting the channel by hitting subscribe down below. I look forward to sharing more content with you soon. Take care.